Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another very interesting knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Tactile Knife Co. Rockwall. This is a very cool knife, one that I have been very much enjoying carrying and using. I've had quite a bit of general, right? I say quite a bit of general experience just walking around and using this as a general pocket knife for little things here and there. I'm happy to share with you guys my thoughts on this thing. Thanks so much to Tactile Knife Co. Same folks behind Tactile Turn, the awesome pins. Thanks for sending this in for me to take a look at. Thanks so much to my generous patrons who are supporting me right now. There's a link for Patreon right down below. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. So this is the Thumbstud version of this knife. A lot of you might be saying, you've already reviewed that. Yeah, I reviewed the flipper version. I'm going to tell you right now, automatically, like just with this design, I definitely like the Thumbstud version better. We're going to talk all about it. I'm going to do some quick specs here. Overall length of the Rockwall is coming in at about 7 inches. Blade length is coming in at about 3, and cutting edge is coming in at about 2.75. How about just a couple of size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Ontario Rat Model 2. This is very similar in overall length to the Rat 2, but dimensionally it is different. How about up against the Spyderco Para 3? And last but not least, let's put it up against the Benchmade Bug Out. There you go. All right, let's go ahead and do carry profile. This is not a super duper thick knife. You can see here it's actually quite a bit thinner than the Para 3. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. You can see here, it's just, I think it's pretty obvious, this just isn't gonna be a difficult object to carry. In fact, even today I'm wearing athletic shorts and no problem whatsoever. Blade stock thickness, let's go ahead and measure that real quick. Blade stock thickness is coming in at 95 thousandths or so. Pretty thin blade stock. What are we looking at for materials? We are looking at titanium for the scales, and we have a steel countersunk liner lock. And then on this particular version, we're rocking MagnaCut. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. They also offer these in CTS XHP and in CPM 20CV, which is an analog to M390 or CTS 204P. So I don't know if MagnaCut is a regularly available thing. I don't know if I would imagine like many companies are planning on utilizing it. It's still a very new steel for a lot of people. They're still kind of figuring out how they want to heat treat it. We're going to talk about that. Yeah, that's what we're seeing here. So weight on this guy, doesn't weigh very much. Oops, almost knocked a whole bunch of stuff over. Weight on the Rockwall coming in at 2.61 ounces, making this a full titanium knife with excellent ratios. Seriously, very, very good ratios all the way across the board on this thing. Hardware check. I'll get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use in this channel. Is this a T10? No, I'm sorry. It's a T. I truthfully have not had to adjust this at all. T8 for the pivots, and thank God, T8. Listen, other companies, look at this knife. This is a compact little knife, right? It's not a crazy bit. And I've heard people say, oh, well, the T8 screws are going to make it look funny because it's a small profile, and the T8 screws are just so massive. What? Look at this. T8, T8, T8. Easy. It looks great on this knife. Thank you, Tactile. Please, other companies, stop using T6. This is it's not really that big of a deal. I'm making a big deal out of it. I just don't like T6 screws. They strip too easily. This looks great, and it's much easier to adjust all the way across the board. This is perfect, right? Minimal hardware. There's not even hardware on the other side, I don't think. No. Yeah, it's all, this is so perfect, the way that they did this. I just love it. Thank you. All right. Anyways, did we get through all that? Yeah, I think that is essentially the end of it. So we are running on bearings here, and the action is nice and smooth and consistent. It's not going to be a fall shut knife, right? Deploying this knife is pretty easy. Getting up behind that thumb stud, despite them being small, pretty easy. The detent is also tuned correctly, so I like that. This little area in here, it's not cut out lower than the other side, and it's pretty narrow in here. I really think this area should be cut slightly lower, just so we can get at it. It's also a bit awkward because you have it instead of, normally it's like a scallop, right? The whole area is just like one continuous scallop. But here they've made room, a very specific dip for the thumb studs. And this looks great, right? Getting in behind the thumb studs is easy, but then getting in here to interact with the liner lock, you're kind of in this sort of trench region. It's a little bit awkward. It'll start to peel away at your thumb after a while. But that's really only if you're opening and closing it over and over and over and over and over again, right? You can sort of rock back here and do this, and that's fine, but still, this area in the front should be cut a little bit lower. That's honestly what I think. This is a beautiful and sort of minimalist looking knife. I love by the way, the pivot is captive. I love the texturing on the pivot. I love the texturing on the titanium scales. The entire thing is sleek and modern and cool looking. And here's something that I appreciate about this knife and the folks at Tactile. They're not going, a lot of times you see stuff like this and you see this like real cringy marketing. James Brand, God, sorry, that was a weird cough there. Whole syllables came out of my mouth. But you see this real cringy marketing behind it, right? Catering to a specific type of culture. Oh, I hate that. Can't stand it. Folks at Tactile now, they're like, here's what we made. Like, we think it looks cool. We hope you think it looks cool too, right? Cool. I do think it looks cool. I didn't need anybody to explain that to me. Thank you for treating me like a human being. I like that. I'm not joking. I like how they did that. And by the way, these are made in the United States, which is really cool, right? It's just, I got a lot of respect for the Tactile knife company and just Tactile in general. The division that makes pens as well. Pretty cool. From what I've seen, yeah, thumbs up from me. The whole thing looks great. I think it'd be cool over time if they offered, maybe do like a blue and a bronze, right? Offer some different anode colors for people who are just looking for a little bit of color. Not a necessity because it looks good like this, but yeah, definitely. I like the tumbled finish on the blade. I think the blade looks nice too. It's very thin, right? Down at the edge, honestly, impressively thin as well. This is a slicer performer. Not a blade that you should pry with. You shouldn't be prying with any pocket knife, no matter what your grandpa told you. Yeah, this is not something I would do that. I would do very specifically, exclusively knife things with this blade. It's a little bit more of a delicate geometry, right? Especially out at the tip, very needle-like tip, but it will do knife poking tasks and knife slicing tasks very well. And the thumb stud clears the cutting path completely. So that's nice sharpening tool too. Very sharp. Let me talk about MagnaCut here. I'm going to tell you this right now. So if you look at Laren Thomas's guidelines for where MagnaCut should be heat treated, I think it says something like 61 to 62 is kind of where it's more balanced. And people are going to interpret the word balanced how they're going to interpret it. There's a lot of hype behind MagnaCut, right? So you're going to get a lot of people trying to poke holes in the balloon. From what I can see, it's pretty straightforward. He says 61 to 62 is more balanced, meaning not going to have the best edge retention, but it's going to bring up the toughness and it's going to make it a lot easier to sharpen. Sure, that's the same thing with most steels. And then he says for better performance, meaning in terms of edge retention, 63 to 64, which, we've seen from, Pete from Cedric Caneda did the cut test, and I think the one that he was looking at, number one, it had an excellent, very thin cutting geometry, which I'm going to take a moment here and just remind everybody, geometry plays a huge role in how a blade will perform. It is not just the composition or just how the composition is heat treated. Geometry will play a huge role. I'm sure, despite me taking the time to say that very slowly, will not stop some people from aggressively missing the point. However, right, there's always a however. It seems to me like, just with general reports, I'm going to be honest with you guys, this knife apparently is hardened to 61, which is definitely on the lower end. I apparently don't use my knives enough to notice that much of a difference. The thing has seemed to remain sharp after cutting little things, packages, cardboard. I mean, this thing has been in my pocket quite a bit. In fact, it's one of my most carried knives and used knives over the last couple of months. It's been doing just fine. Now, if I were to go out and process wood with it all day, which is honestly not something I plan on doing with this, I would imagine I could dull this blade, and honestly a lot of blades, within a day. Sure, no problem. But I'm not using it enough to really notice. I notice a couple of little teeny tiny rolls, and I just, this is what I use. Like, it's an old strop from USA Made blade. Most of the compound's gone, and I just did like 50 per side, and it seemed to bring it back to life, which is generically in line with what it said on the little readout about, yeah, it's going to be easier to sharpen, maybe increase the toughness, but decrease the edge retention, right? A lot of people correlate the word performance directly to edge retention. If you are the type of person who likes to block out all of the other elements of any composition and assume that what makes it good or bad is its potential edge retention, you will want MagnaCut heat treated to a higher Rockwall hardness. It's real simple, right? If that's what you want. Now, to be fair, it seems like the best balance of MagnaCut's attributes for the vast majority of people, it seems to be falling on that higher, like what Laren Thomas said about maybe higher, 63, 64, right? So perhaps, right, I'm not somebody who reviews steel. That's not what I do here. If you've been under the impression that I take my knives out and test the absolute crap out of, I don't do that. What I like to do is comment on the design and who I think it will work for and who I think it will not work for. There are simply way too many variables when it comes to geometry, steel, all of that. I'm not a professional. I don't make knives. I don't heat treat this stuff. I don't make steel. I don't sell steel. I don't do that, right? I can't comment on it. All I can do is go off what other people are saying and my personal experience with this stuff, which is, it's pretty light use, right? From what I see, most people are saying MagnaCut really shines all the way around. Very high corrosion resistance, pretty high toughness, and pretty easy to sharpen. But the best balance of all of those things, including edge retention, seems to be at the higher Rockwall hardness. So I think perhaps, right, based on my very limited perspective, perhaps Tactile and other companies who are, again, just starting to dip their toes into MagnaCut, right? They're just dipping, all they can do is go on customer feedback, right? Not just mine, but everybody else who's using it. Perhaps we should aim a bit higher with MagnaCut. I think 63. It's kind of like M390. We all kind of figured out, the 50s, not gonna work. We're gonna need it 60 or higher. Some people will be like, 62. 60 or higher, 61, I think a lot of people say 61, 62, but definitely not below 60. We all kind of figured that out. It's not going to work, right? So with MagnaCut, it seems like maybe we should aim a bit higher to make the vast majority of people happy. Again, my experience with it was it seemed to roll a little bit, and I sharpened it, and it was pretty easy, and then I went about my day. But yeah, so there you go. Just remember, they also offer CTS XHP and CPM 20 CV, and their ranges, I believe, are the appropriate. Those steels have been around much longer. Lots more feedback. They've got a lot more to go on. It looks like their numbers are, in the right parameters as far as heat treat goes for those steels. So anyways, moving on here. Jimping. Nice spot for the jimping. I don't know how much I'm going to be holding it like this. Often I found myself doing this with it, right? Cutting into packages and stuff. Ergonomically, very, very good for such a small, usually little knives. It doesn't feel very good ergonomically, but beautiful chamfering. It almost is more like rounding of the corners. Real nice. That texturing is not aggressive. It's real. Honestly, it's kind of nice. Has a nice buzz to it. It feels good. I like it. Backspacer looks good. Real sleek, slender, minimalist. Just doing a good job of making it look nice, right? Seating of the hardware, everything looks really good. I don't have any complaints. Like the fit and finish on this knife is really, really good. I mean that. We have a little stop pin back here. I don't think there's any shouldering. There doesn't need to be any shouldering. The pocket clip is just wonderful. Finally, the company's going, how long does the clip need to be? Does it need to be up? No, why? Because why? Why would it be up here? Of course, right? They thought this out. They looked at the knife and thought, no, it's going to stop right here because why would it need to be longer than that? Also, where do we put the lanyard hole? Oh, never mind. Who cares? The pocket clip is in a fantastic position and it takes full priority because it's not competing with a stupid lanyard hole thing. Truthfully, this size of knife, who they're thinking is wanting to pick this up, it doesn't need a lanyard, right? So this is great. Nice and deep. Doesn't need to be that deep, but it is, right? It's just, this is a good design. And there's a slight bill, but it's so short. It's just rising up just so it can slip easily over the seam of your pocket. I like that, right? This is just good. Heavy applause. Heavy, heavy, heavy applause for this pocket clip design. Really like that. Because it is a countersunk liner lock. That's steel, by the way. So people go, why didn't they put a steel lock bar insert? Believe it or not, I have people do that. When it's a steel frame lock or liner lock, I have people getting upset that there's not a steel lock bar insert. You mean that you want them to cut a chunk out of the steel lock bar so that they can then put a chunk of steel into the steel lock bar so that we can then have a steel surface to interact with the steel tang of the blade. Do you understand what you're complaining about? The only reason that we put steel lock bar inserts in lock bars is so that we don't have something like a titanium on steel surface-to-surface contact situation, which is still okay, right? Titanium generally is way softer than steel, so it wears away faster. So by adding a steel lock bar insert, you solve the issue of potentially excess wear over time, and also it makes it easier, mostly, this is mainly the reason they do that, it's so that it's easier for a manufacturer, if they need to do warranty work or maintenance work, they can just pop that chip out and put a new one back in, and then your geometry situation is fixed, right? This is already steel. So if they need to replace it, they just pop the screw out and pull the liner lock out and then put a new one back in. But anyways, yeah, good. Completely and totally solid lockup. I love it. No lock stick at all. We have no pivot lash. And we have no detent lash. Also, I've never adjusted the pivot. This is fine. I did drop this knife a couple of times. I think there's a couple of little marks here or there. Not anything major. But everything just stayed perfectly solid. Really good. Yeah, my only critiques, honestly, are we need this area cut a little lower because this is such a narrow space to smash your thumb meat into. It's kind of uncomfortable. I think we just need that cut a little lower so that we can engage there. Maybe perhaps a little bit of texturing on the side of that lock bar. I don't know. I think cutting it lower would be a good idea. And then I think, at this point, from what I'm hearing, community feedback is MagnaCut needs to be heat treated to, I would say, at least 62, probably 63 or 64. This design is very, very good, and I can still absolutely recommend this knife because, again, they offer other steels. The knife itself, the design itself, which is what I do here, very good. This is excellent. I love this knife, right? So those are my thoughts. This is going to go in my most recommended knives playlist. What do these cost, by the way? I should have brought that up. This is a $300 knife. That sounds like a lot of money, right? Titanium, MagnaCut in this case, or CPM 20CV or CTS XHP. American manufacturing. Very, very high quality American manufacturing. I do not have a problem with $300. That does not bother me in the slightest. I have handled a lot of knives from all over the place. I've handled a ton of stuff that's made in the United States. And something like this, where like almost all of it, if not actually all of it, is made in-house, honestly, it's a pretty impressive price tag. This is an extremely recommendable knife, and I'm very happy with it. Thank you very much to Tactile Knife Co. for sending this in. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.